And on behalf of our co-chairs and our partners with RHearts, we're thrilled to have you today for our Veterans Remembrance event, hosting Boulder Crest Retreat founder Ken Falke again, and our featured speaker, Andrew Bottrell, retired Navy EOD tech. Before we get started, I just want to recap a few things that we started off with this month. We kicked off our Grovember campaign, spearheaded by our equity support group for the 5th year. Together with RHeart and RVets, we're attributing all the proceeds to Boulder Crest, so really excited to put those two together. Yes, please. Donate extra for this. Yesterday, we had the honor of marching in the New York City Veterans Day Parade. It's the 100th anniversary of Veterans Day, and we had more than 30 people from capital markets and wealth management volunteering and participating in the parade, which was pretty awesome, and the weather actually held up pretty well. Finally, at the end of the month, we have our capstone event the Saturday after Thanksgiving with United for the Troops. Once again, we'll be volunteering, doing the care packages for our soldiers that are deployed for the holidays. I think there's still room if you want to volunteer, and it's a great event with your families too. So try to sign up for that if you have a chance. But today is our marquee event for the month, and we are so excited to have Ken and Andrew with us today. RVets and the RBC Foundation has partnered with Boulder Crest for the last several years, and I was honored when Ken asked me to join the board 2 years ago. The critical mission of what Boulder Crest provides is for our veterans, first responders, and families is help and healing and a path to post-traumatic growth and mental wellness. Ken retired from the Navy 21 years ago, combat veteran, EOD specialist. After the Navy, he went on to become a very successful entrepreneur, founder and CEO of 2 companies, and he and his wife Julia founded the EOD Warrior Foundation in Boulder Crest in 2013. I have personally been very impressed with Ken, the tremendous amount of energy of his team, and the day in, day out grind of everything they do to make this foundation work. Currently lobbying for mental wellness bills in DC, outreach events and fundraising across country. They just flew out here from LA, and taking such good care of our vets and their families through the programming. Like Ken, Andrew is also an EOD specialist. EOD stands for Explosive Ordnance Disposal Technician, or bomb specialist. Both of them deployed with really dangerous operations with our SEAL teams, and we'll hear more of his story coming up. He's originally from Wisconsin, enlisted in the Navy in 2004, originally as a submarine mechanic, before going on to EOD school. Married his wife Lindsay in July 1st of 2011, shortly thereafter deployed to Afghanistan, and on October 1st, 2011, just 3 months later, his vehicle ran over a roadside bomb, and the blast took off 3 of his limbs, both legs and 1 arm. He spent the next 3 months in surgery in the hospital, in and out of rehabilitation for the following rest of the year, and has undergone countless surgeries since. Through it all, Andrew talks about how none of these things define him, and believes you needed to dominate your life through whatever happens. I met Andrew just a year ago at another Boulder Crest event, and I remember hearing him speak and hearing a story and how I was so inspired, and I vividly remember his response where he said, "Mental discipline is what allows people to be successful," and quoted Miyamoto Musashi, "There is nothing outside of yourself that can never enable you to get better, stronger, richer, quicker, or smarter."
Can you hear me? Yeah. Good afternoon. That video is a little out of date, as you could probably tell by some of the statistics. Trish, thanks for taking us to the museum today. We went to the 9/11 museum. You know, it's really 18 years that we've been at war, not 15 as the video suggested. And we've developed this curriculum, and I'm happy to report for those that were here last year, we're out and up to 4 sites today. We have a second retreat facility in Arizona. I don't know, are those pictures going to flash up now? There were some pictures flashing up before, but we have a retreat now in Virginia and in Arizona, and that doubled our capacity as a nonprofit. But we've also licensed out our curriculum to 2 other nonprofits, a group in Florida called Gratitude America, and most recently, the Zach Brown Band has a camp in Atlanta, Georgia called Camp Southern Ground, and they are delivering their second program starting Friday of this week. So it's starting to really take off, and our goal is to have 10 locations when it's all said and done, and that's really what we're working towards. How many were here last year? don't want to go over the whole thing again, but the video tells you just about everything. I went on a personal journey early on in this process to really understand why the mental health care system in our country is broken. And this isn't just for veterans, it's nationwide. It's a system that's broken. And I personally believe that we've kind of outsourced mental health care rather than what you and your family and your friends can do for each other to this group of people that aren't necessarily that well themselves. The mental health professionals are twice as likely to take their own lives as you or I. So it's not a really healthy community, and I just find that combat veterans and people that have been through combat are a lot stronger, and they don't need to go to something that's not as strong. So we wanted a program that would help them basically thrive and teach them how to thrive in life and not treat them as a patient, not just reduce symptoms, which is really what the mental health system's about. If you're depressed and they can make you a little less depressed, they call that success. We don't call that success. We want to see people thrive in life. And everybody deserves that opportunity, and in our opinion, combat veterans deserve it as well. So that's why we do, and that's what we spend all our time doing. This curriculum has been studied, 2 clinical psychologists. It's about 5 times as effective as traditional mental health care, but it also goes on for a long period of time. And I knew early on in the process that if I was to draw some sort of hypothesis and say, okay, if we take people away, somebody's depressed here, and I take them to the Blue Ridge Mountains for a week, they're going to feel great, and then I send them back home on Monday, they're going to feel like this. So we knew that we had to do something to sustain this feel. Maybe not all the way here, but something that looked like this. Because the truth is, no matter who we are in life, our lives are a sine wave. We look like ups and downs, and everybody has trauma. Parents die as we get older. Our grandparents die when we're younger. We put dogs and cats down. We see tragedy like you saw here 18 years ago. And all that stuff leaves a mark on us. And it's something that we can never get out of our minds, but we shouldn't let it define us, and we shouldn't let us hold us back. And that's really what post-traumatic growth suggests, is that in the aftermath of trauma, if you take the time, in the aftermath of trauma, during that time while you're not feeling well, to really understand why you're feeling like that, you can go on to do some really remarkable things. And that's what our program does. And really want to have the time today for Andrew to talk about his experience. Andrew went to combat with the SEAL team, and they were on a deployment where in a very busy area with lots of improvised explosive devices. They went out on a night mission in a vehicle, him and a SEAL, and the mission got canceled, and on their way back, as they were coming back from this mission, they ran over an IED, and it blew both of them out of the vehicle, and it killed the SEAL that was in the vehicle with Andrew, and Andrew lost 3 limbs. But he's gone on to do some remarkable things in his life, to include start his own company. I'll let him tell all the great things he's done. But you would think after losing 3 limbs, you could think for a lot of reasons why you would be depressed for the rest of your life. But this is an example of what post-traumatic growth is about, and I don't think I could offer you today a better example of what that is about. So thank you for having us again. We're growing. We're working with 2 billionaires down in Atlanta. I'm leaving here in the morning. The 2 founders of Home Depot, Bernie Marcus and Arthur Blank, are behind us. They've both committed a big number, $20 million each, for us to scale this nationwide. So we're in the process right now of raising a $200 million fund that will actually fund the scaling effort around the nation. So obviously any help you can be would be greatly appreciated, but we know we're also where we have to find those resources, and that's why we're working with Arthur and Bernie to bring this home. So without any further ado, I'll just introduce Andrew Bottrell and let him tell you his story.
Well, as Ken and Lesley said, my name is Andrew Bottrell. I'm from southwestern Wisconsin, where the cows outnumber the people. And it's cold there, too. I moved to San Diego later, and I prefer that climate. So I grew up in a great home. I had a great family. I joined the Navy right after high school because I didn't like school, and I wanted to do something cool. So the military it was. I did 4.5 years on a submarine, which I didn't really think was cool. So I got out of that as soon as I could, which took 4.5 years, and went to EOD school. As Lesley said, it stands for Explosive Ordnance Disposal, Navy's bomb squad, and we are responsible for rendering safe any and all explosive hazards from a hand grenade to a nuclear warhead. So, and as Lesley said, yeah, I got married July 1st, 2011. I got blown up on October 1st, 2011. I have a daughter that is 3 years old now, who is the most interesting person I know. And I enjoy long walks on the beach in the rain. It's not true. It's just to make me sound normal. That's the quick version of my story. Brief history, so to speak. As Lesley said, it's not the definition of me. And what I really want to talk to you guys about today is turning post-traumatic stress, or how I turned my post-traumatic stress into post-traumatic growth. I can truthfully say that after my worst nightmare for my life came true, that I could no longer be an EOD tech and no longer could physically do what I used to do with all of my limbs. I am also able to honestly say that I am now living a life that is better than I ever thought I would have before I got blown up, before I physically lost someone. A little bit more about my story. The last week of June in 2011, I called my fiance and said, hey, do you want to get married next week or in 6 to 10 months when I get back from Afghanistan? I had just received word that we were deploying. And she said yes to the next week. So next Friday we got married at a rehearsal breakfast as I flew in that night. It was before the end of that month, before the end of that July, that I was already in Afghanistan, starting to do turnover with guys that I was relieving and starting to work with and integrate with SEAL Team 10 there. It was awesome. I was doing what I was meant to do. I got to blow things up, got to shoot guns, got to do a lot of really cool stuff that I'd wanted to do ever since a kid. Like I said, I was doing what I was meant to do. Until October 1st, and that's when I was returning from an op and got blown up. I was in an unarmored vehicle. It's like a off-road gator. It's called an LTATV. It did nothing to protect, well, very little to protect me from the 80 pounds of homemade explosive that was in the IED that threw me 30 feet. The 18 Delta, which is the Army's designation for a highly trained combat medic, in the vehicle behind mine, said that he saw I was missing body parts when I was still in the air. And that's not the worst part. This was a two-person vehicle. Caleb Nelson was the best guys I've ever known. He left behind a wife and 2 young boys. It was about 2 weeks later that I woke up in America with no memory of the events of the last 2 weeks. The next year, I spent the next year focused on learning how to walk on and use my prosthetics. Basically, just trying to improve my situation every day. Focused still on improving my physical situation, though, which I soon learned was a mistake. During that time, I was struggling with some pretty heavy thoughts. I wasn't suicidal. Time that thought came to me, it was quickly dismissed as never an option. I couldn't do that. But at 25 years old, I was ready to die. I was talking to one of my close friends and mentors from my EOD team, and I told him where I was at mentally. That I don't have my legs anymore. I can't run my left arm. I can't do what I used to do. I'm not EOD tech anymore. What good am I? His answer was simple and effective due to the context it's carried from our job. He said, you still have your brain. In EOD, we are high-stakes problem solvers. We place a premium on outside-the-box thinking, using your brain to solve any problem, no matter what the circumstances. That was it. That was the beginning of me turning my post-traumatic stress, post-traumatic growth. I didn't know then, but knowing what I know now, I can tell you that that is when my mind and my spirit were ignited. This all came out of a conversation that I was having with a close friend that I trusted to speak to me at that level. My mind was open enough to accept it, take it to heart. I decided to figure out what I could do with my brain to redefine myself. I grew from that necessity. I grew from the necessity of having to redefine myself. You cannot define yourself, then you do not have the direction or the why that Friedrich Nietzsche mentions in his quote. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. You must define yourself with things that cannot be taken from you. I define myself with the following. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm an honorable warrior. I'm a curious being, and I'm a problem solver. These are the main things that I use to define myself and to guide my prioritization and decision-making paradigm for my life. Dealing with life's struggles, if you can define your being, then you have, then you can use that to guide your thoughts, actions, and priorities, and everything else will fall into place. I learned the hard way, as I mentioned, that it's incredibly dangerous to define yourself through your job or what you do. You lose that, you have some serious questions to answer about yourself and your value. After my worst nightmare came true, I had to redefine myself. I could no longer define myself as an EOD tech, or what I could do physically. Since then, I've learned some things about what it means to live well or to struggle well. I figured out how to achieve the life of my dreams by getting healthy in my mind, body, spirit, and finances. I reprioritized my relationships with my 3 to 5 closest friends and family. I'm improving my situation by constantly working towards my goals. Always improving your situation is something that was beaten into us in EOD school. No matter what we got handed, we were always expected to make it better. No excuses. Identify your weak areas and systematically figure out how to improve and strengthen them by making incremental improvements every day. Over the last several years, I've accomplished a lot, and alluded to. I have multiple patents in my name. I've started and run my own company, a real estate investor, repaired my marriage, I can do a one-arm pull-up, I can shoot competitively with one arm. I will be the best father that I can possibly be. Continually work on all these areas. It's been a long uphill battle to get to where I'm at now. I only accomplish these things by continually taking small steps, focusing on what I can do, not what I can't. Every area of my life is subject to this mentality. It takes honesty, humility, self-awareness. This is how I live well.
I thought you were going to dance at the end.
Got 2 left feet now,
He said as we walked over, it was cold outside. He said Sarah wasn't paying attention, but she had us navigating the wrong way, and he said his feet were going numb. But
almost froze off.
guys on the street next to us thought it was funny, but
Yeah,
nobody else.
Sarah didn't think it was funny. She will later.
We'll open it up now to Q&A if anyone has any questions to start.
I'm curious about your patents that you've developed.
So, yeah, so there's a couple. My first one was a tool. I redesigned and revamped a tool that we used in EOD. It's called a mine probe. It's a glorified stick. You poke around in the dirt trying to find a mine or an IED. I designed it because I thought the one that I got issued was not as good as it could be, so I made a better one, and that was kind of my way of staying in touch with the community and doing something with my free time, which I had a plethora of after being medically retired. Another one, I wanted to be able to shoot and reload my pistol faster, so I developed a little device that held a mag for my pistol. If you've seen Lara Croft's Tomb Raider, basically I ripped that off and made my own. I came up with a way to do it, and I patent that. And then there's another IED simulator that a buddy of mine developed together. And
Andrew, thanks again for being here tonight. It's an honor to have you here. Can you speak a little bit about the role of your wife and your family, your immediate family, in helping you get to this period of post-traumatic growth?
I'm sorry, the level of what?
No, just, I mean, again, the role of your wife and the immediate family, do you have brothers and sisters, for example?
Yeah, as I mentioned in the beginning of my talk, I grew up in a really good home with a great family, and I'm close to all of them to this day. When I got hit, they all came out and were supporting me in the physical sense immediately. So I woke up in a hospital room with no knowledge of what had happened. Let me answer your question before I go down that road. They played a big role. What the biggest thing that they probably gave me, and that upbringing gave me, is the knowledge that there is a good life that you can live well. If I had not been so fortunate growing up, and there are a lot of people that go down the rabbit hole of post-traumatic stress that don't know the life that I had led, or they don't know that that good life is possible. If you don't know if something's possible, you will never strive for it, right? So that was a big role. Does that answer your question? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, she's been through a lot. We met my first time through the second grade and started dating about well, when I turned 25, so not shortly after we met. But yeah, it's definitely been an adjustment for her, and we had talked before I deployed and before we even got engaged, and she was like, "What if you come back, alive, but blown up, like different?" I was like, "Yeah, we'll cross that road when we get to it." But she's held up really well. I think it's something like 50% of combat wounded dudes' marriages don't last. So yeah, I mentioned repairing my marriage. There was a point in time where I was ready to walk away, and she was not, and that was a good decision.
Just to dovetail on that question, can you guys talk about how the both of you met and your experience with your family through a retreat at Bouldercrest?
Are you familiar with Craigslist Missed Encounters?
My wife and I started the EOD Warrior Foundation early in the war in 2004, and it probably isn't a severely physically wounded EOD troop that I don't know. There definitely isn't to this stage. So we visited the hospital every time somebody came in with their injuries, and I think it was about the end of 2010 when we went dismounted again in Afghanistan. A lot of amputees were coming back from Afghanistan because the IEDs were much smaller. They were like anti-personnel devices, unlike the big roadside bombs we saw in Iraq. And the guys were finding these IEDs with their feet, stepping on them. At one time, I pulled up to Bethesda when they still had two hospitals, Walter Reed and Bethesda. There were 345 Marine amputees standing in formation or in formation. That's how many were at the hospital at one time. Obviously, the Navy and the Air Force had the least numbers, although the EOD community, we had about 200 amputees. And it's a very small community. There's only about 5,000 active duty bomb disposal personnel in all four services. So it was a big time there. And from the end of 10 to about the middle of 13, it was like every 4 days I was going to the hospital. And you were the third triple amputee, I think. It was Joe DeLora, was Air Force, was the first one, followed by Tim Brown and you. And then Chris Walker, who lost both arms and a leg. And I saw them all back to back. And truthfully, when I didn't think it would get any worse, we had another Navy guy come in, Taylor Morris, who lost all 4 limbs. But Andrew, I went to the hospital one day, and Andrew's dad is a dentist or orthodontist? Dentist. But he's also like a jiu-jitsu expert, and his uncle's like a jiu-jitsu expert. And he's standing at the door with his arms crossed, and it took me a little bit to convince him that I was a retired EOD guy and with this foundation, and they let me in the room. And, that's how we met. So then really we've just stayed friends since then. We kind of did some stuff together with his patents because I had a defense contractor company, so we were selling some equipment, and we were trying to get this landmine probe. humanitarian demining around the world is where we were trying to get this probe into deminers' hands, because they don't always have great tools in places like Cambodia and Laos, where all these mines are in the ground. So we were trying to get this tool into the humanitarian deminers' hands. We stayed friends, and you and your family have stayed at the retreat a couple times, coming back in December. The sister's intelligence specialist at the highest levels of intelligence in the country, and his brother's a world-class musician and former bass player for a couple bands.
He played bass for Christina Perri in the UK, did sound for Michael Posner, and other stuff. He's out in LA still doing stuff.
To Andrew's point, what happens a lot in the military is we recruit a lot of people into the military who don't come from great childhoods and from great backgrounds, poverty and abuse and all the other things. And when you have that in your life, it does make it harder to heal. When you don't have that in your life, it makes it easier because your family, not easy, but easier because your family gets there and has a level of support that a lot of people don't have. So you see a lot of PTSD that sustains in people that come from really bad backgrounds and bad families. So that's one of the things the military does, is it allows us to build our own family in the military. And that's when people leave that sense of family is not there because they don't have anywhere to go home to. They don't have a family like Andrew's, and they can go home to that. That causes a lot of long-term problems with PTSD.
That's why you look at that picture, Boulder Crest, the guys that go through that experience together, they come out the other end of that week. They didn't know each other beforehand, but they're family after they.
Not to bring politics into it, but why is it that we as a nation, can't really, cope with these type of mental issues, either in the military or just here in the city? Homelessness. It seems like you can't open a newspaper and something seems to be happening on the streets, and we just can't get our arms around it.
In general terms, the mental health system in our country really got decimated in the late 70s. They closed a lot of mental institutions, places where people didn't have to go. The homeless population in the United States went up significantly when that happened. There's a lot of reasons, politically and financially, why these places closed. They did, and that's one of the problems that we have. The other thing is that we're working with a doctor up at Harvard, a guy named Vikram Patel, who's an Indian doctor, educated at Cambridge, probably the smartest psychiatrist I've ever been around. But in America, I mentioned earlier that we've kind of outsourced this mental health care to mental health professionals. In a country of 350 million people, we have about 500,000 mental health professionals. In India, where they have 1 billion people, they have 5,000 mental health professionals. What they find is the most successful programs in India are, in fact, peer-based. Right? If you have problems, that you have a friend or somebody that you can go to, like Andrew described in his talk about the guy who said, you still have your brain. Somebody that can be honest with you and help you through that. And we just haven't done that. We've continued to outsource it in this country. Peer programs just aren't effective. You look at drug and alcohol treatment in our country, there's a 97% recidivism rate for people who go to drug and alcohol rehabilitation. The insurance companies pay big money for it. The pharmaceutical companies pay big money to put people on drugs to do that, to detox, but it doesn't help and it doesn't work for a lot of reasons. And I don't know, politically. I mean, it's not that we're not putting money towards it. The VA's got a $209 billion budget this year. $90 billion of it's going to mental health care. And it's this investment in the same stuff over and over again. And it's like, Einstein's theory of insanity is that you keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. It's crazy. So I'm testifying Friday in front of the Senate because it's like 125 Americans a day take their own lives. Suicide's the only cause of death in the United States right now that's on the rise. Everything else is leveled out or decreasing. Heart disease, cancer, suicide's on the rise. 125 Americans take their own lives every day. 22 of those are veterans. We don't even know if that number's right, but that's the statistic. Yet we have $90 billion going into these programs, that aren't working. Guys are dropping out of them left and right because they don't connect with the therapist. It's frustrating as hell. So that's what we're hoping to change, is to show people that there is a better way. Vikram told me once up at Harvard, he said that every country in the world is a developing country when you talk about mental health. It's not. From a science perspective, it's fairly new in the world of medicine. Freud's 125 years old at this point or something. And the community's got a long way away from where Freud ever thought that he would do. I love the beginning of your question, which was, what can we do to help? I would start there and say, make sure you know your family and friends and how well they are or how bad off they are and what you can do to help them directly when they're in need. From a government perspective, I can share with Lesley, I do all the time, our legislation. We've got some legislation that's being pushed forward. If you have a congressman and write a letter and ask them to support our legislation, that would help. But I think, the bigger question is, what can we do to help in your company, in your homes, in your friendships, and that's really, I think, that's the question we should all be asking. What can we do to help? Because the system's not going to help. I get calls every single day from soldiers, and now because our network's got a lot bigger, from moms whose daughters or sons are struggling, and they want to get them help, and they don't know what to do. I was in San Diego last Thursday. The first phone call I got when my flight landed was from a guy that knew me, who had a soldier who was still on active duty, had just come out of 8 weeks of inpatient care, and they were trying to get him 8 more weeks. Because the first 8 weeks didn't work. Maybe that's not the answer. Maybe not getting him 8 weeks, but getting him out, getting the guns out of the house, sitting down and talking to him and trying to come up with a plan of how to get better. It's hard, but I think that's what we have to do, is help each other.
I can add to that. Become a better negotiator. Figure out how to become better at active listening, because you basically have to negotiate for their life. If there's no light at the end of the tunnel for them, and nobody can communicate that to them, it's a lost cause. Their mind and their spirit have to both be ignited to want to get well. Otherwise, it won't happen.
Yeah, just thanks again for being here. Really appreciate it. And I think we can get our head wrapped around, a lot of the focus always is on the big recovery. Like, you're coming out of the trauma, you have to recover, you're getting out of the deep depression. I think a lot of us can relate to the day-to-day struggle. Like, it doesn't end at the end, you gotta continue this for the rest of your life. Like, do you have any techniques, or, what do you use I know it's got to be tough some days, right? And we all have that sine wave like you're talking about. Yeah. What have you developed? What do you think about, that gets you continually moving forward and keeps you going day to day?
Well, nobody wants their life to suck, right? I don't want my life to suck any more than the rest of you. I have, after 8 years, a new normal. Yeah, sure, there's times where my arm isn't working. I can't do something, I drop something, my hand opens up on its own, because it does that sometimes, and that's my prosthetic hand, not my it'll trigger some pretty good anger. To deal with it, man, it's like I said, you don't want your life to suck, so I go to the gym 5 days a week. I work out. I work to keep my mind, body, and spirit, everything, as I continually work towards making everything better. I think everybody's different, so it could be, and then it may not be. The important thing, I think, is just striving for a better life. I've said for a long time that the day you die isn't the day that you stop breathing or your lungs or your heart stop. It's when you stop trying to make yourself better, trying to evolve. You aren't evolving, you're actually going backwards.
Acquire that you've brought into your daily practice, or was there something that was most effective that you learned there?
So what we teach at Boulder Crest is meditation. The cornerstone of our Warrior Path program is transcendental meditation. We have a partnership with David Lynch Foundation here in New York for that. We also teach mindfulness-based meditation, guided meditation, but also fitness is a big part. Our wellness model is based on 4 areas: mind. We do a lot of work, with sleep. A lot of people that are suffering with PTSD have a hard time sleeping. So we do some work around making sure people can sleep. Expanding your mind. We talk a lot about what is next. How can I become a better version of myself? How do I increase my wisdom? On the body side, we have a partnership with TRX. You saw probably in the video. Fitness is a big thing. The human race is designed to heal itself. Otherwise, we'd all be dead. The dinosaurs, we'd have gone with the dinosaurs at some stage in the game. When you exercise, your body releases chemicals that are better than any drug that you can put in it and into your body. So exercise is a big deal. You find a lot of veterans will get out of the military and become obese very quickly. Not always their fault. Sometimes it's medications that they're put on that cause that. But obesity is a killer in general terms. Financially, we see a lot of suicides where the average suicide in the veteran community is a white male, 55 years old. So you start to think about why at that age would somebody take their own lives. And we've seen forensically, that financially sometimes it's a problem. People get to a point in their life where they don't see an option to live because they don't have the finances to get through, and they have a life insurance policy, and they think if they take their own life, their family will be better off without them. So financial wellness is a big part of our program. And then spiritual wellness. And we're a non-religious-based program, but we define spirituality really in 3 ways. One is character. Are you the person that you say you are? In the Navy, our core values are honor, courage, and commitment. Are you living those kind of values in your life? Also, relationships with others. We believe you become the average of the 3 to 5 people you spend the most time with. If you're spending time with 3 to 5 drunks, you're going to be a drunk. We kind of go through that model with them a lot. And then the other one is service to others. Because when you're helping other people, it helps you. That's a big thing. And I tell everybody, don't go out and just try to start another nonprofit, but go down to the food bank on Sunday with your kids and just show them. Gratitude's a big thing. There's studies out that show that gratitude literally changes the way our brains work. So you go out and help other people. It really does give you purpose. When you have a purpose in your life, like quote that Andrew read earlier, it really makes a big difference in how you live.
So we talked quite a bit about the mental of all of this, but how about the physical? So what's kind of been the evolution of your prosthetics over the last 7, 8 years? Have you gotten better? Is there things that you've been shocked you've been able to do, kind of learn to use your new body?
Yeah. So I'm actually pretty much using the same left leg as I got when I was newly injured. And Otto Bach prosthetic knee from Austria, and that's what I get around on every day. It's got technology in it. There's a gyroscope and an accelerometer and a bunch of other sensor packets that make it so that I can walk down a ramp or set of stairs in a somewhat natural way, but it's not natural. My right leg is a glorified peg leg made out of carbon fiber. There's no moving parts, sensors, nothing. It's just carbon fiber blade. My left arm is got a lot of technology in it. It's I like to tell people that it is controlled by telekinesis. So I have so many stories for you. Tony Stark lost a bet to me and didn't give me the rest of the Iron Man suit. No matter, ignores my calls. Yeah, it's bad. The other thing is, I last year got a procedure known as osseointegration, where they basically took a metal rod and put it in my humerus and then one in my femur too, and that's what my prosthetic's now attached to. Normally, the prosthetic is on you have a socket, which is what your residual limb goes into. It is made out of carbon fiber. It is not comfortable. It does not breathe. And if your soft tissue swells, it does not move. So you are kind of stuck with what you got, which means that it's pretty uncomfortable. If you're an active user like myself, I don't use a wheelchair at all. So I have to be able to walk on it all the time, which means I spend a fair amount of time in prosthetics making sure everything fits right and I can comfortably move around. The reason I did the OI was because I got rid of the sockets on my left arm and my left leg. So I dropped 66% of my stress level, basically. It was a long process and not without its trials, because I had to go back into a wheelchair and deal with that. I couldn't use a prosthetic arm while I was doing it. It was a couple surgeries. I was made aware of how bad opiates are for me, especially now. I've come down off of opiates 6 times in my life now, and it doesn't get easier. It was actually an eye-opening experience. I've never done drugs outside of prescription stuff that I've been prescribed, but the stuff that they prescribe you for people in my case, like Dilaudid, is an opiate, and it's 7 times more potent than morphine. So I've experienced coming down off of that 6 times. The last surgery, I literally told the doctor that I would rather be in pain than come down off of opiates again. The last time I came down off of opiates, it was rough. It was probably way more rough for my wife than me, which is saying something. So I told the docs going in that I had to figure something else other than opiates. And so I ended up using ketamine, which is non-addictive. And that worked out pretty well until I had a nurse that opiates and patient trying to get me to get off of the IV drip that I was on. So I had Jesus moment. But just working through life's struggles, right?
And later this month, he's getting pretty sophisticated.
Yeah. So going back towards the tech side of the prosthetics, the new interesting cool stuff, Johns Hopkins is developing a prosthetic arm that I will be trialing for 2 weeks in December. It's not going to come out to market anytime soon. It's just they just want user feedback, and there's a select few that they can get to do it. Does that answer your question?
Do you think you'll be developing, thank you, do you think you'll be developing something in terms of prosthetics to make them better? Like, do you see yourself in that
No, man, I'm not that smart. So I'm not an engineer. I have what I like to call high school equivalency. In the military, as most veterans will tell you, we're good at getting stuff done. Kind of what we specialize, especially in EOD. But I just don't have the engineering background to put into the solution for a lot of these prosthetic stuff. Looking towards the future and what I hope to see come and what is possible and what is started being worked on, eventually it'll probably be you'll be able to have an arm grown for you with your DNA in it. It'll be transplanted onto your body. We personally know a couple people that have had arm transplants already from cadaver arms. And the body then tries to reject it because it's a foreign body, so the person has to be on immunosuppressants for the rest of their life, which is not ideal. I looked into the program as a possible candidate and turned that one down after I found that out. There is some stuff coming down the pipe in the near future for a better control system to my arm. So the way my arm's controlled actually is they took the nerve that went to my thumb, the nerve that went to my wrist, and the nerve that went to my elbow. They tied them into little bits of muscle from my bicep and tricep. And those AMG sites are underneath the skin around my arm right here. On the outside of my arm, there's a band that picks up movement. And now when I think about closing my thumb, opening my thumb, it fires a signal down that neural pathway, flexes that little muscle belly, and that's what the band picks up and sends a signal to the prosthetic hand to do something, right? So that's why all that explanation is why I just say it's telekinesis. They get glazed over eyes like you guys have now. So yeah, that's kind of does that answer your question about the future of prosthetics?
I had a question, which was, you guys both talked about like how much the support of your family over here,
There you go.
yeah, made such a big help in, pulling you out of where you are. But what's the message you tell people who don't have that awesome family and friend support?
Well, that's what we do in our program is try to connect them with those friends, mentors, and it's a big part of the program. You don't necessarily need family, and we even find people that have family that some of the family's toxic. Going back to that, it's a disaster. So we call it pruning. Sometimes you just got to get people out of your life, whether it's family or friends, that want the toxic people out of your life because they bring you down. So what we try to do is connect people not only with peers, but also with mentors that can help them get jobs and all those types of things.
3 to 5 is essential. And that 3 to 5 doesn't have to be anybody from a blood relation.
Are families in the program? It seems like the video is focused on the combat vets, but it feels like there's a lot of family members that would need the same support. Is that part of the Boulder Crest?
So our flagship program, the program we spent the most money on with curriculum and studying is Warrior Path. We also have a curriculum for a program that we call Family Path. We run them in the summer only for the whole family. We have a couples program. Andrew alluded to. Historically in the military, the divorce rate's always been a little higher than civilian population by maybe 4 points or something. In the Special Forces community today, the divorce rate's over 90%. So it's pretty significant. So we try to do a couples program, 4 of them a year, and then we also do a spouse program where they can come on their own. And then we're not running those 4 programs. We let families come and stay in the retreat free of charge. So you can come and have like a mini vacation free of charge at one of the retreats. We run that just like kind of like a bed and breakfast. You go online, make reservations, and come and stay with your family. You don't get a program per se while you're there, but it gives you the access to the facilities, kind of more knowledge about what we do, and we tend to recruit a lot of people who come with family R&R, tend to recruit them for the other programs.
All right, before we take any more in-person questions, we would like to invite anyone on our WebEx to unmute themselves and feel free to ask.
Questions?
Two questions. One, can you tell me a little bit about your daughter and how she's doing? And then second, sort of in line with the earlier question, what can we, RBC has a big charity focused on children. How can we be more involved from that perspective?
So my daughter's 3. She's the most interesting person I know. She's hilarious. The other night when we were leaving the restaurant, I asked her what her favorite thing was from the evening. She loves going to this restaurant because they bring her French fries and coloring books. That's also why I love it. We're reading at the same level now. It's great. We read the same books. Wonderful. She goes, the new treat, because we had the pavlova. This is the first time she'd had that. But another fun glimpse into her psyche, I think, is traffic in Southern California is similar to New York, I think. People are cutting you off and doing stuff, so I had slammed on the brakes for something, or swerved and missed something. And my wife was she was very concerned about that. She was holding both seat handles with white knuckles and breathing deeply to try and calm herself again. And we heard this little voice from the back go, "Wee, that was fun." So she's mine.
We run some kids programs at Boulder Crest Retreat just for children. It started off as Gold Star children. Gold Star is a designator they give to families who lose somebody while they're on active duty. And we started off running a Gold Star Daughters program in Boulder Crest Retreat in Virginia for a couple reasons. One is I had 2 daughters, and I spent 21 years in the Navy and 14 of those years deployed. So my oldest daughter, including her birth, the first birthday I was home for, she was 16 years old. So we wanted to do something for girls because we had seen a lot of programs for boys, hunting trips, fishing trips, scuba diving trips. Not that girls couldn't do them, but you didn't see a lot of girl participation. We started off doing a Gold Star Girls weekend in October. That's transformed now, as you can imagine, a lot of the Gold Star kids are adults now. But that's transformed into a military children's program. We only do it in Virginia because we actually have a donor who funds that in Virginia. Their charity is focused on children in Virginia, and specifically in our county. Money left from an ambassador who had died and lived out by us. We did run it last year in Arizona, I think, Sarah, but I don't think we did this year. We didn't get funding for it. But we do some children-only program. In the family program, all the children work is done separate from the.
I guess it's questions for the both of you, but Ken, you gave some pretty striking statistics earlier about mental health. And, looking at, Andrew, your story your recovery is pretty incredible. And so it's clear that what you've done, what Boulder Crest, the model, you guys are making some huge strides in recovery. And I just want to know if there's anything to learn from this in terms of mental health in general, from the Boulder Crest model, or is this very specific to vets? And, I guess what's the secret sauce?
Yeah, No, that's a great question. We get asked all the time, with what we do for the military work for the civilian population. Our answer is yes. We just haven't had the chance to experiment with it a lot. We had an NFL football player come through our program a couple years ago who did amazing. Civilian, never served in the military, was a little unsure of being there with military folks, but that's really what we're pushing for now is how can we get this message out to a broader audience and a broader group, because it's definitely needed.
Whether you're a civilian who's gone through a traumatic experience or a service member that's been through a traumatic experience, I don't see a huge difference getting from that point to living well. The same basic things need to happen in your head, body.
Thank you all very much for having us.
Lesley asked me last night if I wanted to close today's session. I immediately said yes, because I said this is going to be a great session. But then it dawned on me last night and actually today that this will be a heavy session. So closing it is not easy, but I'm honored to be up here to close it. Andrew, we're truly honored to have you here in the room with us. Ken, the work you do with Boulder Crest is just so good and so useful. And I think you can take it beyond Boulder Crest, and we'd love to help where we can, whether personally or even as RBC. So a couple of things. I'm going to try and close this out in a way I'm going to try and lighten it up just a little bit, and then get a couple of thanks in, and also then bring it back to Andrew in particular. But I want to basically first congratulate one of our basically attendees tonight, is Angelina Frankowiak, who's the daughter of Tricia from our Municipal Sales and Trading team. She's been accepted by the U.S. Naval Academy for entry in September of 2020. And Angelina, we couldn't be more proud of you, but we know Tricia, if you don't know, does more for veterans than anyone I know except Lesley. So we are blessed to have two female leaders who are so responsive to veterans, not only veterans, but their families as well. And Angelina, we couldn't be more proud of you as a family. Yeah? So I want to talk about, for a minute, about my co-executive sponsor for RVets, Lesley. We marched together in the Veterans Day Parade yesterday with her family, Chase, Mackenzie, and her husband, Brian. And you know what, Ken, we knew you were a smart guy before, basically, we even came into contact with you, with all you've done with Boulder Crest. But really, you became a very smart guy when you hired Lesley or you asked Lesley to join your board of directors, because there's no one more passionate representing Boulder Crest and veterans and their families than Lesley. And we're honored to have her as part of our team, and the good work she's carrying out for you is really multiplied many times over. So, Lesley, thanks. So, and Ken, I just wanted to say thanks to you. I mean, I think you're a great example of a veteran who transitioned to the corporate world but never forgot, basically, the cause that you grew up in. And I think the way you've taken Boulder Crest beyond basically just veterans' mental health is actually what this country needs. I think mental health is the least understood and most rapidly dismissed problem in this country. Have personal experience in dealing with it, and it's just amazing, basically, what people have to go through as families to actually come out on the other side. So I really want to commend you for the work that you've done, not only with Boulder Crest, but in advancing mental health awareness and, for basically benefiting Andrew and his family as well. So thank you so much for all you do with Boulder Crest. Okay, and Andrew, it's honestly, so many of us do not have full appreciation of the level of sacrifice that you've made, the level of, commitment that you've made, basically, and the level of trauma that you've gone through as an individual. And I think from our standpoint, we all like to say thank you for your service, but it's never enough just saying that. So I want to say that, but I actually just want to thank you for being such a positive role model for so many people impacted by trauma. And the post-trauma growth story you have is an amazing one. And I'm so inspired by that, and I'm so inspired by the great things that you do many years ahead. The same way that Boulder Crest has a multiplying effect on the benefits it provides to families and veterans, you're going to have a multiplying effect on people who are impacted by either PTSD, injuries like your own, or basically whatever else that the stresses of war may bring. So we are grateful for your service. We are so honored to have you here tonight. And I have to tell you, it's a little bit disarming when you meet a triple amputee, but it's particularly disarming when they have a sense of humor. So I really applaud you for that. And it really just kind of helps us really just warm up to you that much more. But most of all, kudos to your family, kudos to your upbringing, kudos to your wife and your daughter. And long may you run in basically advancing many things beyond prosthetics, beyond post-traumatic growth, and helping Ken advance the cause from the Boulder Crest. So thank you so much for being here tonight. Okay? Okay. Give a standing ovation.